In this audit, we looked at whether the government is achieving its objective of no net biodiversity loss from the clearing of native vegetation on private land. We examined the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, or DELP, four councils, and the Trust for Nature. We look at the way they manage native vegetation clearing on private land. Councils should only approve native vegetation removal when removal cannot be avoided or minimized. We concluded that Victoria is not achieving its no net loss objective for native vegetation clearing on private land. This is partly due to illegal clearing, which DELP acknowledges contributes significantly to the decline of native vegetation across the state. Councils are not effectively managing native vegetation clearing in their areas, and DELP has been slow to address known issues to support Council's implementation of the regulations. Native vegetation provides valuable habitat for many plant and animal species and is critical to Victoria's biodiversity. The state has committed to no net loss of biodiversity from removing native vegetation on private land. Victoria is proportionally the most cleared Australian state. DELP estimates that since European settlement, 54% of Victoria's original native vegetation has been cleared. Victoria has lost 79% of native vegetation on private land. Removal of native vegetation is regulated in Victoria. DELP sets the policy and regulations and reports on the no net loss objective. Councils are primarily responsible for implementing the regulations. They generally require a vegetation offset as part of issuing a permit to clear native plants and trees on private land. An offset site is one that is secured and actively managed to ensure a biodiversity gain. In spite of efforts to establish offsets, we continue to lose native vegetation cover. DELP estimates that every year, Victoria loses some 10,380 habitat hectares of native vegetation on private land. We cannot verify the accuracy of this estimate, which DELP acknowledges is subject to high variability and poorly quantified levels of uncertainty. DELP's datasets have data quality issues that affects its native vegetation calculator and offset credit register. For example, limitations in DELP's assessment tools mean that in some parts of the state, DELP cannot determine the required offset to fully compensate for biodiversity loss. Councils are not effectively managing native vegetation clearing on private land. When assessing applications, not all audited councils apply the avoid, minimize, and offset approach, meaning the state could be losing biodiversity unnecessarily. And due to limitations in their systems, none of them can reliably tell DELP how many of these permits they approve. Also, none of the audited councils could demonstrate that all clearing in their area was either permitted or subject to an exemption. All four councils acknowledge that they have not been able to prevent and take effective action against unauthorized clearing. DELP is aware of the issues that need to be addressed and has established a working group to develop an action plan, but progress has been slow. We made 2 recommendations to councils about improving their management of native vegetation, and 4 to DELP to improve data collection, reporting and monitoring, as well as its support for councils. We also made 1 recommendation to DELP and councils about determining strategies for effectively managing clearing on private land. For more information or to read our full report, please go to audit.vic.gov.au.